Ciao, guys. Welcome back to the Artful Podcast. It's Matteo, your host. And before we go on with the new episode, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, support the channel like that. It's really important. And no further ado, let's go on with the show.
Yeah.
Did you said from the age of 16 to 18 you were focusing on like astronomy and researching in that, but was it through art or was it only just to get maybe into some schools um and as actually studying that as a job, or was it through like your art you were exploring this side?
I guess both. I was really
Mm.
interested in actually just the concept as well of having, I think I was always fascinated by these ginormous telescopes for some reason. I don't know why, but it was also just this looking through the lens
Mm.
and finding something that you can't see with the naked eye so clearly. And also, I guess, being interested from of something that was so far from reach from us here, but we can still see it. I found it a really bizarre thing that like there's not much that you would have found on the internet about a specific, like I couldn't name the constellations I was looking for. So I used to have to type in what I thought they looked like. But of
Mm.
course they already had names, like there was like the lion and everything like that. And I couldn't figure it out, and it took me a while. So I just started drawing them the way that I saw them. And then I kind of like when I was then doing more and more like studies on it, I then would come across in a book then there's a book called The Great Universe, and it's quite a nice book as well, and it just is a really like good beginner insight into astronomy for
Mm.
somebody who really knows nothing about it, which I really enjoy. And they
Yeah.
also incorporate as well art in it, so I guess reading that also kind of like pivoted a moment as well where I was like, yeah, like you can really work with this in a specific way. But yeah, I think because I wanted to do my portfolio, I think I was still looking at it in an artistic way too,
Mm.
because that was a really big deal for me. It's like, when you're every moment of your life, something seems like it's the biggest deal in the world, and then it
Yeah.
passes, and then 5 years
Move
go
on.
by
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my God, it wasn't that big of a deal. But at that moment, my portfolio was such a huge deal to me that I guess I couldn't, like, anytime I was doing anything, I was like, oh, that would work for something, or oh, that we could, I could make something from this, or
Mm.
that everything had a purpose in some way.
That.
I think when I'm in a bad mood, but I'm kind of like I'm feeling optimistic, I use a lot of yellows. I noticed that too. The one
Mm.
color that I know that I'm feeling really, really content with is when I see mint green. And when I start making mint green, it's my favorite ice cream, actually, mint chocolate chip. And I used to always get it as a kid. So I think that's why I
There's a
really,
connection
really,
there.
yeah. And I love just mint green. Not even like this green behind me. I wouldn't consider that. I mean, like a really soft pastel, like
Mm.
bluish green. That color is like for me so delicious, but I don't use it all the time because I think I like to use that when I'm really like feeling like I'm in a nice kind of calm. And I think I find color important as well because I like to talk about that too, actually. But sometimes it can be a bit much because people are like, okay, I just asked you like a 2-second question and you give me a big
No, no, this is
story.
this is great. That's it's most of the time with artists, like we do some certain little things, and we don't even realize it most of the time, but there is always a connection with like our childhood or like how we grew up or why we like there's a really personal connection with these little subtle things that we do. And most of the time, yeah, as you're doing it, you don't realize them. But for example, something that um close to what you're describing right now, in my experience, it's um I do this period of time where I do drawings, paintings, and but it gets to the point that I need to go back to using gold
Mm.
sometimes, and I go through these stages of like using gold in my paintings as a background or part of the portrait or whatever. And I was like, why am I doing this? So I start like thinking about it. And I think, and I'm guessing that's what it is. It's because I grew up, my parents, especially my dad, is a goldsmith. So he creates jewelry and from scratch. And we grew up, we are three brothers, and we grew up in the labs. Like we were there with them because obviously they couldn't leave us in the house by ourselves. Three boys will destroy the house. So they bring us with them to into the lab. And I grew up into around surrounding by like gold and all these like shining colors. And I think that's why I go back to gold. Sometimes for me, I don't know, maybe it's like it's a comfort zone, and I feel safe and I feel good. And it's one of those things that reminds me of my childhood, my family, because I left Italy when I was 19 by choice. I wanted to, and I wanted to travel, explore, and all these things. But I'm so close to my family, and I love my family. And so I don't know, maybe sometimes I need to go back to using gold just because it reminds me of, those times. And yeah, sometimes, yeah, as an artist, we do these little subtle things that we don't realize, but it's so personal and so connected to to us, which is, yeah. It's what, yeah, basically it's you exploring yourself every day when you're painting and when you're drawing. And
Yeah.
this with you as well, with your mint green, and reminds you of these moments with like again like these ice creams and your childhood. So it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story about your
Oh,
dad being a goldsmith and using gold.
yeah.
Yeah, super nice.